Welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I'm John Kim.
And I'm Noelle Cordeaux. We are the founders of Lumia.
And we're super passionate about all things coaching, and we want to share what we've learned from over a decade of coaching and training thousands of life coaches.
Let's dive into the science and magic of coaching.
On today's episode, a super important topic, and that is defining success as a life coach. Noelle, good morning.
Good morning. Do you know what I just realized? The word success is not a word that I can spell readily.
Yeah, you use only one C.
Yeah, I know. Problematic.
So this is actually, I think it's such a great topic because a lot of our students, I think they define or they fall into the trap of defining success, what a successful coach looks like based on numbers, based on, how much money they're going to make, and all these things that can actually, I think, be dangerous, right? Or it can make you question yourself.
I agree. And another piece to consider as we're thinking about how we define success is the real and realistic timeframes that it takes in order to build a practice that works for your life, not just looks like something that someone else thinks works for your life.
Yeah. And I think it's harder today to come up with a definition that's honest to you just because of social media and us, being able to see our neighbors and everyone else who may be coaching and, the comparison thing.
Oh, yeah. And the comparison thing, I think let's hit that first because there are so many different super rad people out there who are working and living in a way that feels really great to them. And we don't see it. We see a very narrow slice of what's available to coaches out there. And the places where we see these things are social media and kind of looking when you Google, life coach or executive coach or professional coach, folks who have SEO pretty high up there, and you're going to get a lot of really weird websites. Right. So what do you see happening in the social media sphere since I'm really not in there?
I think it's hard to get accurate information on what someone's, practice / career really looks like because social media, I think we do a lot of filtering. A lot of people are not transparent with where they're at in their journey as a coach because I think if they actually are, they're going to feel judged. They're going to feel that their career isn't successful. So there's a lot of exaggeration. There's a lot of positioning in a way that can be kind of false and misleading, I think, on social media.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, something that I've seen happen over the last couple of years is a trope, the rise of the influencer coach.
Yeah.
And that's something that you've talked about often.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people jumping on this. I'm a coach now because I read self-help books, or I'm a coach now because it's cool, or because I've done, my own work. But most influencers, as far as life coaching, they have not educated themselves. They have not taken courses and gotten certification. So I think a lot of them are saying that they're a coach without the actual stamp,
Oh, 100%. And, something that I think is really interesting to juxtapose is the difference between the picture, the difference between the video with the caption and what you as a human actually experience living inside of your life.
I was at a coffee shop writing yesterday, and I made this little video, and I said, "You're not a writer unless you actually write." And it raised a few eyebrows, and people are, well, you can't judge if I'm a writer or not. That's up to me whether I write or not. And I meant it from kind of a professional lens. And I think with coaching, if you're not actively training or practicing, or if you're just thinking about being a coach, to me that's not that's not a coach. That's someone that's thinking about being a coach. So I think on the internet, there's a lot of people thinking about being a coach, but they really haven't gone on that journey, but they portrayed themselves to be a coach, if that makes sense.
Yes. And we're going to talk about currency, and we're going to talk about money and presentation. And your point really hit home for me, that someone who spends, hours a day writing, perfecting their craft, playing with words. Likewise, someone who is really working as a coach, understanding their niche, understanding the
Mm-hmm.
population that they really want to serve, getting out there in their community, whether that's online or in person, is very different from someone that posts a picture of a palm tree and says, I made it, Ma.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
And then, the other, I think, very visible profile of coach is kind of to another trope, typically a white man, older executive coach with
Right.
years and years and years of experience, kind of, jet setting, look at
Mm-hmm.
me, make $1 million in 3 months type deal. And, that's called branding and marketing.
Right, right. We don't really know, yeah, exactly what that person is. We don't know how many clients that person has or what he's actually doing. That could be a lot of fancy footwork, a lot of digital marketing.
Oh, yeah. And well, both of these examples do truly exist in the world of coaching. They're not representative of successful coaches who form the middle ground, who are out there doing real work every day with really
Mm-hmm.
cool populations in unique and fascinating ways. And you don't have to go very far in order to find them. What you do need is a community. And that's why our organization is hands down, I believe, one of the best out there, because all of these folks are visible. You can throw a rock and hit a role model within our community. And so let's get into it.
Yeah.
First up, we have Charisse Williams. She is in Atlanta, Georgia, and she spent a really long time working in nonprofits. She was a CEO. She was a former executive, filling all of the different leadership positions. And I heard her give a lecture, and she was talking about how her aha moment was she was striving so hard that she found herself wheeling around an airport with a broken foot. And at that moment, she was like, what the hell am I rushing for?
Mm.
why am I spending my time this way? And she went through yoga teacher training. She came through our program, and she rebooted her whole life and launched a practice based on peace and joy. And
Mm-hmm.
she just published her first book this year. It's called Thriving While Black. And she facilitates workshops, offers keynotes, and works one-on-one with clients.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with her story, when you think about her, what makes her a successful coach in your eyes?
I think it's her relationship with herself in this
Mm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
And, when Charisse and I talk, and she talks about, you really digging deep, pulling from her soul. I reviewed her book, and I'm listed, I'm one of the pull quotes talking about her book. And when I read it, what really hit me is that Charisse is speaking to a really specific audience for the purpose of saving their lives.
Right.
And when I say saving their lives, I mean turning darkness into light,
Mm-hmm.
finding joy in a world that doesn't want to give it to Black folks. And the work that she does is vital for her community. And so to me, Charisse represents someone who's a successful coach because she's walking her walk in concert with the calling of her soul.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I agree with you. I also define a successful coach not by how much money you make or how many books you sell, how many clients you have, but more how you live. I think that really holds up.
Absolutely. And then, how you live can be very different. So, the next coach that we're going to look at is Chris Clark, and she's in the Pacific Northwest. And she's another person who jumped out of the proverbial matrix, worked in very high levels in nonprofit leadership, supporting CEOs, supporting fundraising. She wanted to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't ultimately, serving her or the world. The systems were a little bit too heavy. And in her own words, she says, my practice today is a combination of one-on-one coaching around executive leadership, getting unstuck in major lifestyle transitions. She also does spiritual mentorship. She reads tarot cards. I've had a reading by her. She's fantastic. And she does freelance writing on topics that are related to her area of expertise.
Mm.
And so just kind of looking at Chris's practice, she's 100% self-employed. She's thriving. She has more work than she can handle. She's turning down work, and she does maybe 4 or 5 different things that really make up all of the different parts of her that are reflected out into the world.
Yeah, I love that you said she does many things, because it reminds me of myself. Sometimes I take on so many things, and then I feel like I'm less potent. I feel like, oh, what am I doing? Is this, being a coach? But I think with today and all the things and tools out there, um, that can be successful, that you can do, 5, 6 different things. You could help people in different ways. You can create different communities. So a lot of that is happening. And I think that can also be a healthy way to define success is the effort that you put in, play, as you say, playing in the sandbox.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about defining success for yourself as a coach, truly do what you love. The
Yeah.
world is your oyster. There's one of our coaches has a podcast called There's a Coach for That, because
Mm.
literally, if you're a human, you have issues, there is a coach to help you. Our next person is somebody that I think you can speak to a little bit more than I can because of her participation in TAT Labs, but Reena Martine. She is a former prosecutor, and she jumped out of the matrix big time. I just saw scrolling by on Facebook that she just launched a Make Sex Fun Again half-day intimate workshop designed for the woman who wants to get back in touch with her sexuality. How fucking cool is that?
I love her story, and I definitely see her as a successful coach. And I love how fast she went from our intensive to getting out there. I know she does a lot of stuff on social media. Like you said, now she's got this intimate workshop that she's designed for women. But also this former prosecutor DA who wasn't happy in her job, who started to pursue her passion and find her voice, and now helps people with sexuality. I think it's such a beautiful story, and she has so much passion. So yeah, I definitely see her and her story as a success for sure. And now she's working on book proposals. So, again, playing with different mediums.
Awesome. Awesome. And Rena's another person who is turning down work
Mm-hmm.
because there's too much to be done out there. And then, finally, Brian, I know you and I have talked with Brian Simpson over the years as he kind of found his voice. Well, not
Yeah.
finally. We one more special person after Brian, but Brian's Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
and he moved, I think, to Southern California a few years ago, and he left behind a really high-powered career. He had a heart attack, and that was a major wake-up call for him to reset his own life. And his work is centered around male vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
love, compassion, healing old wounds. He helps others do the same. And when you talk to Brian about his work, he feels that this is really his purpose, that and he will be talking to folks sitting next to him on a park bench about their childhood, and helping men express their emotions and really heal. And he just rocked his first year. I think 2020 was his first year as 100% self-employed and profitable coach in his space.
Mm, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I've met him and hung out with him a couple times, and I think he's doing great work. I love, I know we have one more, but I love that all these people, although they have superpowers, they're not people with millions of followers. They're not famous. They're people like you and me.
Yes, absolutely. And unless you really go searching for them because you need what they have to offer, they're not going to be flashing by in
Hmm.
in your line of vision.
Right, right.
Um, and we'll close out with Lauren. She goes by Lauren J online. She's a former therapist, and she keeps her personal information private. And she's of the Iroquois Nation, and she just launched a practice called Good Mind Coaching, and it's for BIPOC folks who feel isolated in their identity.
Hmm.
And her work is so unique because she's really sidestepped the entire weight of the way white supremacy sets up practice, and uses indigenous practices, indigenous healing methods to run her coaching for BIPOC folks. And I've never seen anyone do anything remotely like what Lauren's up to. So, Good Mind Coaching, if you want to check it out. And every time I hear her speak, I'm overcome with gratitude that we have
Mm.
such a brilliant person in our community who's willing to share this work, because there are so few people who give voice to it in the way that she does.
All our students inspire me.
Oh yeah. And you've had a kind of an awakening recently with reconnecting with your own Korean heritage. How
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, how has that kind of filtered into your work as a coach, and how does it make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly growing up in the 80s where I was the only minority, most people, all the kids, the cool kids around me, skater, surfer, were all, blonde, blue eyes. And I was embarrassed of being Korean. I was embarrassed of the food that we ate. I was just embarrassed, and I wanted to be quote unquote white so bad. So growing up like that in the 80s, and then now today with what's happening, and also in media, Asian people, I think, finally starting to be represented more. Um, there's a part of it where I feel a little bit of shame and embarrassment for wanting to be white, or back in the day that they used the word Twinkie, right? Yeah, yellow on the outside and white on the inside, and that was a compliment when someone called me that. But now I reflect, and I'm so like embarrassed about that. And so my journey in uh, discovering my culture and my who I am, and my it's stuff like that I've never really thought about before, but now hitting me. Um, it's yeah, it's been really, it's changed my lenses. It's changed when there's internal change like that. It changes your content. It changes what you talk about. It changes my language. I edit myself more, and so um, yeah, all of that ripples outward as a catalyst, as a coach.
Oh yeah, and I am so proud of you for finding that part of your voice, because as we're talking about defining success as a coach, for me watching you, you have a platform where every young Korean person who bumps up against your work is going to have permission to feel pride, is going to have permission to understand what it's like to be othered in a society that doesn't give you a lot of role models that look like you. Is going
Mm.
to have permission to really get down with some kimchi and bone broth, and, which is delicious, by the way. And and you're creating space for your daughter to grow up in
Yeah.
a world and have an identity that's not based in something that she's not.
My new apparel line is going to be called Kimchi and Bone Broth, Noel. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I didn't even think about that. So thank you for shedding light on that, and also a different angle and reminder where it's like your own personal journey as a coach um, is going to shed light, and it's going to create relatability and connection with different populations. So as you grow and as you go on your own personal journey, as long as it's authentic and it's coming from a place from within, you're going to reach different people at different times. And I think that as long as you are connecting with yourself and working on yourself, that inherently can add to you being a successful coach.
Oh yeah. So as we close out with this topic, there were three areas that really jumped out for me when I was thinking about the real lives
Hmm.
of the coaches who have come through our program. And those three areas are, your life, your relationship with currency, and the impact that you have. So I came up with a series of questions for each of these, and maybe we could go through them together and pose
Yeah.
them for our listeners. So I'll kick it off. Life, what are you doing with your time on this rock?
Hmm.
And do you find ease in your days? Um, John, what's your relationship been with ease and joy as you've taken this path?
Oh, it's so much better now than it was before. These days, work feels like it really feels like that connection to myself when I was 12, going into a room and playing with my Legos, losing track of time. So whether I'm doing things like this, podcasting or teaching, or creating a new product, writing a new book, all of that, it's just so fun. And so because it's fun, there is ease and lots of joy sprinkled throughout the day for sure.
Awesome. And so, if you're listening and you're considering success, I'd ask you, are you happy with your morning, your noons, and
Hmm.
your nights?
Hmm.
And do you have space to pursue interests, relationships, and work that really fills you up?
Yeah. You and I talk a lot about life design, and I think both of us, have designed a life that actually produces joy. I mean, of course, there are days that are hard, and we work a lot and all that, but cumulatively, if we pull back, generally speaking, um, my life today, and I'm sure yours too, produces a lot more joy because of the work that we do.
So much joy.
Yeah.
And I think that rolls right into this idea of currency. Um, and I just want to be super clear that I'm not necessarily talking about money. I might be, but that's
Hmm.
a really personal choice for folks. I met with a client not too long ago in October. We had coffee, and I we were talking about, I was self-disclosing because we were meeting as friends, and I said, you know, my life isn't good because of having money or not. My life is good because of the relationships that I have.
Mm.
And it's true. So currency looks different for everyone. I believe in relational currency as the strongest force. John is a great example of this. If I didn't have a relationship with John in my life, then the organization that we built together wouldn't exist. And so you can have a very rich life without lots of money. You can have a very rich life with lots of money because of your relationships as well. So I would challenge you to say, in terms of success, does the way that you relate to your currency and your relationships and how you work, does it give you what you need to live, to love, to laugh, and to eat and sleep well?
I love that. And authentic relationships, they can't be bought. They have to be earned. And so I love that you stamp currency with relationships. For me, it would be experiences. So
Mm.
experiential currency is important to me. The power of a new experience. So whether we're talking about something relational or jumping out of a plane or whatever, I think that experiences, they evolve us, and so that would be a currency for me in my life.
Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
No, it's funny because I'm talking about. I have my currency is my experiential wallet is empty, meaning my currency is very low. I just that's just my idea. No, I haven't jumped out of a
No.
plane, but
Do you
I've been
want
in,
to?
well, I've been invited too many times. I'm afraid of heights. It's a different conversation, but I think when you jump
Okay.
out of a plane, I think you go up so high that you're actually not, even if you're afraid of heights, it doesn't bother you because it's different than being like, standing on top of the Empire State Building where that's terrifying, but you're so high that it's not even scary anymore. But I hear
Oh yeah.
the jumping out of the plane is what's terrifying. Once you're in the air, it feels good.
That's the I mean, your job lends it very well to being able to jump out of a plane if you wanted to. I was surprised I hadn't heard about it because I imagine that would be a freaking hilarious piece of content. So do it for the stories, John.
Yeah, I think when I'm 50, maybe that I'll jump out of a plane. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
And the last one I love is impact, right?
Hopefully not from jumping out of a plane. But yeah, what is your legacy?
Yeah.
And I think a deeper question is, do you have one?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, a sad facet of our existence. I see a meme fly by with regularity that, you are meant to do more than work, pay taxes, and die.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people are doing just that with their time. And I look out into the world and I'm like, damn, everyone, like, what are you doing? Like, what have you done? And if you're thinking about yourself and your legacy and defining success as a coach, what about the world do you want to change?
Yeah.
What about your own life do you want to change? And how can you create it?
I love for me, what comes up is the words life catalog. One of the, I talk about a lot, content a lot, social media a lot in our office hours. And the way that I look at this whole thing is like, it's a life catalog. It's me documenting and creating a life's work through digital media, through audio, through books. And when I look at life catalog, I instantly think about the long game. I don't think about, because it's easy to fall into the trap of, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 months, or I'm going to do this for 6 months. But I think about, at least for me, I think about my entire life and the catalog that I want to produce.
Oh yeah. And my life catalog is going to be very different than John's. My life catalog is the legacy of the organizations that I built, the legacy of the people who come into our program to teach and share their brilliance, the people who come in, take the education and go out into the world and create ripples. Every single person that we highlighted today, Charisse, Chris, Reena, Brian, and Lauren, all of those folks started with a question of, what needs to change for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into a practice that mirrors their legacy and the change they're creating out into the world.
Yeah. And I love that we're ending on this because it's allowing us to pull back and not fall into the day-to-day and the trenches of a coach. And if you're successful because of your followers or your bank account or how many clients you have, but this idea of impact, this idea of legacy, this idea of your life catalog, for me, at least, it helps me really pull back and take a breath and say, here I'm at the right place, and I'm not going to label myself in a way that may be unfair because of where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for this conversation. I think it's an important one, and for folks who are just starting out on the path, keep in mind that you are the only one who can ever know if you're happy in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, but you're good at making it look like you're happy, then you owe it to yourself to do the opposite.
Yeah. And we challenge you to create a new definition of what a successful life coach looks like. Thanks for listening to Everything Life Coaching. If you're feeling the draw to become a coach, head to lumiacoaching.com/everything. Explore a new career that brings fulfillment, gives you a true sense of purpose, and a bold community to do it with.
Lumia is ready to equip you with the tools, training, and community you will need to reach your goals. If you're ready to build a unique coaching business on your own terms while making an impact on the world at large, Lumia is the next bold step in your coaching journey. That's lumiacoaching.com/everything.
And hey, if you're waiting for a sign, this is it.